Do you know where Corey Bend is?
What part of the valley? Is it north? I know there's a big.
It's in Sandy.
Yeah,
It's in Sandy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
All
by
right.
like
What's
Walmart,
close?
Hobby Lobby.
Okay.
It's probably like 15 minutes from here.
Yeah.
We have people that go to Corner Canyon that go to SeaTac.
I think I'm gonna try to get. My son's 16. He's
Do you
a
know?
sophomore. So.
There's a bunch of different programs. Do you know which one he would be interested in?
I'm not sure at this point. I want to get him in something that's, pretty technical. So.
Yeah. So there's like
What do you guys take?
we do business leadership.
Okay. Yeah, that might be good for him.
Yeah.
Too.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a lot of different programs and they're all really good ones too.
Okay.
So what do you guys want to do with your lives? What do you want to do?
I'm
Want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna head out on a mission right after high school, then come back and go to the Utah State, the business college program.
Okay.
Then probably BYU, the Marriott School of Business, and hopefully the entrepreneur.
Cool.
It's kind of my plan.
What about you, Kade?
So
Gonna go in banking like your dad? It's pretty good business.
honestly, I wouldn't mind that, but right now I'm enrolled in the U at the business college program, just at Echo School of Business. And then after that, hopefully I just have connections from there and know what to do.
You guys are what age group?
We're both
High school?
seniors. We're both 18 or 17.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 17.
I'm an Aggie. I'm a Utah
Oh,
State
heck yeah.
aerospace engineer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually went to an engineering camp, so I thought that's what I wanted to go to.
There's a lot of good things happen out of getting an engineering degree nowadays, and getting out in the working world and the technology world, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But it's kind of a good way to get yourself into the working world and then decide what you want to do from there.
Yeah.
You kind of have to have a little bit of expertise to be able to start a business.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
That's anything significant.
I want to start a business, but it's like,
Actually, so more about our program. There's a guy in the other room. His name's Matt Fritchie, if you have ever met him, and he actually came into our class and talked to us because we get a bunch of like seminars from different people who have started a business. What business did he start?
I started many, but I don't know. There's a lot.
His name's Fritchie.
Matt Fritchie, yeah.
Is he a redheaded guy?
It's like blonde.
Strawberry blonde.
Yeah. And he has it's like a mohawk. He's young.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Maybe it was his dad. I played baseball against a kid named Fritchie.
Really?
Maybe.
Yeah, he was a good player. So
just
go ahead.
Starting with your high school. Where'd you
Cypress
go to
High School.
Cypress
right
High
here in the
School.
Valley, yeah.
Did you take any classes to prepare you for your future?
Not really. I grew up in a blue collar family.
Okay.
And so my dad worked at Kennecott. Was not an engineer, but developed and built his way up into being superintendent of the powerhouse and boilers and the smelter. And so he was a very inventive, technical guy, but he also owned a business on the side, him and my grandpa, a sheet metal business. So I started actually sweeping the floors and working in so sheet metal is bending metals, welding, different cutting and methods and things to form whatever, right? So my 3 older brothers, I'm the youngest of 5, my sister's right in the middle. And so we ran that business for about 15 years. And so from 9 years old on, I was kind of working,
You were working from 9 years old?
Getting involved.
What were your responsibilities there?
Well, starting off sweeping the floors, but it ended up being other things as I got older, right?
Did you have any teachers or anything in high school? Just in high school for now, that just stood out to you or like?
From a technical standpoint, I consider myself kind of a technoid guy. I mean, I read Wired magazine, Popular Science, and Nerdy magazines now. So, really, my dad was kind of my teacher along those lines. He was an inventor, and we talked about, he used to take me as a small kid and sit me down, when I was 11 years old in front of an electric motor that we were tearing apart to change the brushes on to say, how does this work? Tell me, come back, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Tell me how that works, kid. And I have to sit there and go, think about it for a long time, and he'd come back and I'd tell him what I thought, and he'd say, yeah, you savvy pretty good, I'd kind of figure stuff out, but he taught me really at an early age to think for myself and to really be, which I think has really been important to my career, is to be inquisitive and curious as to how things work, right? Because the world's a big place, and how the technology world, especially my world in semiconductor manufacturing, works is really, really complex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you gotta kind of have a little bit of a basis of understanding of how things work to be able to understand how bigger things work, right?
Mm-hmm. So you said you went to Utah State for college. Any classes you took there? Any teachers?
I started out at Salt Lake Community College.
Okay.
Was working and.
Do you have the lattes in here?
Yes, thank you.
All right, because you're down some 12 minutes. You weren't that one poured short, is that correct?
That was me. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the 4-shot?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Was there another one?
Rewired.
I did. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And so I basically got out of high school and thought I was going to be a football player, so I went and played at Snow College for a year and got my second concussion. I played running back and switched to tight end in college and got killed. So I wasn't big enough. I was skinny. I was tall, but I was always really thin. So decided that probably wasn't going to be the best option for me. Then I started working for a little while, and basically told I had pretty good grades in high school. I didn't put as much effort as I should have into it, but I had good grades, and asked my dad if he'd help me go back to Salt Lake Community College. The idea was to get a welding, Associate Applied Science in welding, and then take that and go into being a pipe fitter, which my oldest brother, they make good money, pipe fitters, and those vocational schools are kind of in demand nowadays too. So I did that, and the head of the aerospace department from Utah State came down to Salt Lake Community College and kind of presented that we could transfer a lot of our classes up there and get a degree in, which was welding engineering at the time, and we became the aerospace technologies combined, the two departments, my junior year. So I graduated with an aerospace technologies degree. But so we did. 6 of us went up there, and 2 of us actually graduated. And
you were one of them, or did you graduated?
Yeah, but the classes were, they're pretty varied, a lot of metalworking classes and a lot of, a little bit in airframe design and composite materials, but mostly welding metallurgy.
Okay. So you said you worked at your dad's, or you worked with your dad.
Yes.
Your dad and your grandpa's company, correct?
Mm-hmm.
When you were 9. When did you stop working there and then start working other places?
We kind of got out of that when I was probably in my teens, mid-teens, 15,
And then
16.
where did you go?
Just mostly was an athlete, really. Thought I was going to be an athlete, right? I started in high school in baseball, basketball, and football. I was the only got my grade to do that. Started in 3 sports and loved it. So that was my goal, was always to be an athlete. But I think one of the keys to the entrepreneurial side of me was my dad telling me my whole life that don't work for Kennecott, right? Don't go work for a company that's going to abuse you. Go do your own thing. My older brothers all went into, everybody's blue collar in my family except me, on both sides, and all generations have been blue collar workers until I got my degree. We have my sister and my second oldest brother have 2-year degrees, but I was the first one to get a 4-year degree, and then it's a great stepping stone to getting into the business world, at least get you in the door to a better job, right? A little higher paying job, a little better exposure.
So you said, or when did you start your company now, Critical Systems?
20 years ago.
So how old were you?
I was 38.
38?
I was 38. I'm 57 now, so yeah, I was just 20 years ago last September, actually, I started it. 1998 was when I started it.
How did you start that company?
I got out of college and took a job in Southern California with a company that manufactured computer-controlled welding systems that are used in aerospace, semiconductor, and biopharmaceutical and nuclear. And that company interviewed me, and there were 2 other Utah State grads working there ahead of me. dinners and I told jokes and I was my same old self. I was always very talkative. So they said, would you consider a sales job?
Mm-hmm.
And so I called my dad up and I said, hey, you want to have me take a sales job? And he's like, take that sales job, kid, you'll make more money. So I basically became a technical salesperson for them right out of college, knew nothing, zero about sales. And so from Southern California, they gave me New England. So I had the whole Northeast as my sales territory. So I was on a plane, single guy, I was single at the time, so I was flying back there and it was great. Got to meet a lot of salespeople and I'm one of those people that I never think of myself as being smart. I want to learn from others, so I ask a lot of questions. So I got with some really good sales guys and I asked them a lot of questions. How do you sell, right? Mm-hmm. And I got with a guy in New Jersey, Jewish guy, smart guy, and he said, hey Jones, I'll tell you how to sell. Call people up that don't sell what you sell and tell them where there's a project. Network, right? He taught me how to network. And says, you tell them where there's a project and see what happens. So I go to these trade shows, right? I meet people and hand out business cards, and they don't think, everybody's just shaking hands at trade shows. I take these cards back and I call these guys up and I say, hey, there's a project. I'm selling welding equipment over here. You can probably sell your valves, your fittings, your regulator, whatever they were selling. And so I start throwing the chum out in the water, right? The bait, and these guys start calling me back with 5 projects. So I'm only at this company for less than 18 months, and within 8 months, I was the #1 sales guy. I was selling. There weren't cell phones. This is what my industry has built these, right? This all comes from semiconductor. Even the screen is a semiconductor process, and so. Back in the day, without cell phones and things, they did magazine leads and stuff, and so they gave me my training, and then they put me in a little room and said, "Here's your office." It was half the size of this. It was a closet basically, and then they came. All I had was a desk and a phone. That was it. And they came in with a shoebox full of old magazine leads and dumped it because I was the new guy, right? The older sales guys were going to show me, right? Yeah. They dumped a shoebox full of magazine leads on my desk, and I'm done, right? I'm just like, all right. And I just started calling every one of them. And I sold 5 systems over the phone within 3 months. No one had ever sold a computer control welding system over the phone. So that went really well. We had a big meeting, and I kept coming to them. Like my dad, I had inventive, I was always looking at the equipment and seeing how we could make it better. I'm traveling all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm talking to customers in the field and saying, what do you need? What would work better? And they've got great suggestions.
Yeah.
Your customers come with the very best suggestions. And so I'm listening, and I'm taking this back to my employer and saying, look, we need to do this, this, and this to the tooling. We could do that. It'd be faster, more productive. Just go sell what you're selling. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what? It kind of was deflating. You know? And so I got a call from one of the groups I've been networking with. Company out of St. Louis, Missouri, and they'd just gotten bought. They were a startup company, and they were going to move and put an office in the Silicon Valley. I was living in Southern Cal, so they knew I lived in California. And since I'd been networking with their sales guys, they called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to take a job with us?" And so again, I called my dad. Right? What should I take the job? Keep moving. So we had a big meeting at the company where I sold welding equipment, and they kind of got hammered on us a little bit. If you don't like the way things are being run, and because I wanted to improve the equipment and stuff, so a lot of the other salesmen and engineers, they said you can leave. So I went out in the hallway that day and told the president of the company I was leaving. He said, "Oh, wait a minute." And I'm like, what are they gonna pay you? And I told him. He goes, "It's been nice knowing you." So I took the job, moved to the Silicon Valley, which is. I got more money, but it's really expensive. Yeah. Silicon Valley, even back in those days. So that went great though, and I got with this company who was a startup and small, and they took me to St. Louis for some training, and then basically they knew nothing about the Silicon Valley. All they knew was there was a lot of work out there. So after my training, which was a joke in St. Louis for a couple weeks on we were basically selling components now. So all the plumbing systems, the tubing, and the fittings to make these gas lines that feed all these big tools in semiconductor that make computer chips, basically make semiconductors. They gave me the yellow pages, threw it on my desk, and said, "Call everybody in that." I'm like, "What?" You know. So I did have a couple leads from my welding days, and I knew the people welding. Obviously, mechanical contractors were building these facilities, and they must need tubing. So I called a couple of big mechanical contractors and got in with the presidents of those companies and sat down and said, "Hey, you know, this is what we do. How can I help you?" And they helped me. It was a very open. This was in the late '80s, right? So the dialogue in the semiconductor was where everybody was trying to figure out how things worked. So it was really a collaborative time, you know, really amazing. So I got to meet some really, really amazing. I met a guy, Bill Bianco was one of the greatest. He was the president and founder of Kinetic Systems, which is still the largest mechanical contractor in the world for high purity. And he took me in his office and said, "You need to go see this guy, this guy, this guy," and I'm taking notes, right? And he'd spec'd over at National Semiconductor and Intel and all these companies, and just, he needed another supplier for tubing, right? But he was one of those type of people. Who does that with a 20-some-year-old guy, right? Just takes him in and helps him. So that was a big deal, and that kind of got me going. And so after working there for just a few months, about 8 months, the national sales manager for that company quits, and I'm getting orders, and they make me the national. I'm not even 3 years out of college. I'm a national sales manager, right? So what does that mean, right? That means I'm traveling all over and meeting people and setting up distribution, and it was cool. So it was just, I was lucky. I mean, I have to say I was lucky, but in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking to myself, what my dad always said, work for yourself, you know, so I always wanted to do that. But your question was what brought me to becoming an entrepreneur. Well, after about 8.5 years with this company and tremendous growth, we 15x'd that company. I got laid off because we had a big downturn, and I was making a lot of money, and it was me or the president, right? So when I got laid off, it was time. That's when I started my company. But during that time frame, I built distributors all over the country, so other companies that sold our products. I had tons and tons of travel, and this is one of the keys, I think, to what I want to convey to you guys is, you know, you got to get out there, get in an industry that's got some upside to it, stick to it, and learn, go meet people, and travel, and build a network. Because that network is well, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to have people. It's all
right.
Yeah.
That's what we learned, network.
Yeah.
All right. You talked about some like the major steps to your success, you know, different jobs. But do you want to like just kind of throw your life over like the main points that kind of contributed to your success?
I think one of the big things for me was I haven't ever really been a materialistic person, so I always have seen money as a tool and not a toy. A lot of my friends are all, you know, even in high school and stuff, where I'm buying this new truck or getting this new, and I'm like, I don't care about that, you know. I wanted to be an athlete, and I was working out all the time. And then when I got in the business world, that was more like, I just want to create a great business, you know. I mean, that's been always been in the back of my mind is the number one thing I think was to build a business that I would work out myself. Because my dad growing up was, you know, my grandfather, immigrant from Wales. We immigrated from Wales as coal miners to Price, Utah, and he moved up to work at Kennecott, my grandpa did. He basically helped start the unions out there, and in the old days, you guys don't know this, but in the old days, companies could care less about employees.
Yeah.
If you got hurt on the job, you got nothing. Drag you off, bring another guy in. You go home with broken legs, killed, whatever, right? There was no compensation. There was no medical, no anything for people. And so the unions brought that to this country. Now they got too strong at one point, but still, we need to have the basis of just being a good human being is to provide jobs. And this is my goal the next 20, 30 years of my career my goal is to build 20,000 high-paying jobs in the U.S. and the globe for people. High-paying, sustainable jobs. That's what I want to do because I've had a great 30-year career now.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd like to do the rest of my, and I'm never retiring. I love what I do. So,
All right. So we talked about major steps to success. What are some setbacks?
man, that's a good question. Lots of setbacks. Yeah. First of all, when you get laid off after you've been really successful and working hard, it's like getting kicked in the stomach. You think you failed, honestly, and it makes you reevaluate and be humbled. Again, that's why I probably love playing golf. Is it humbles you every time you go out there.
Oh, man.
But it's very humbling to be an entrepreneur and a business person, and it's the setbacks that make you stronger. So the old saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," is true. There's no question about that. And so for me, it was, my first company actually failed from '98 to 2000, middle of 2001. Had a couple partners in that business, and we were trying to do some new things, new technologies, and didn't work. And they basically hung me out to dry, and I was the lead sales guy, so everybody was calling me for money that was owed. So I basically went in debt from working almost 8.5 years, saved all my money, and started the business, and then lost all that money. Owed the bank $60,000. So I lost about $250,000 on my first business, and was faced with, plus in the meantime, my wife had our first baby was 7 months old, and we were running out of money. So I had about enough money to cover a month, 2 months of mortgage and food.
Oh, man.
When
That's the part
all of a sudden I had to go, that was tough. So, but my wife just, thank God, she said to me, "You know what, you're the best salesman I've ever known." And that was big. Confidence, right? Confidence. So she built my confidence back up. And I went out there, furiously at this point, because you're homeless, right? And we're looking at, and I thought, I can go get a job. I called, and there were several people who wanted to hire me because they knew me from, obviously, travel. I knew everybody. It's a small industry, right? And so I just kept with my mind that those 3 years of failing that business, I knew I could do it because I brought so many applications to the table, and the new technology we were bringing forth, which was a new polymer coating we were using to protect surfaces, didn't work, but I knew I could go get the business, right? And it was kind of the onset of the internet at that point. This is about 2000, 2001. And so, the search engines and stuff were starting to get better and better. And people there wasn't really a lot of content on the web other than maybe almost like a brochure, right? Company name, address, what they did. It was simple stuff. But you could find companies, right, very fast. And so at that point in time, I had to make a decision. Do I go take a job and take a step back? Or do I risk it all? This is the point. As an entrepreneur, you risk it all.
Right.
And I mean that. And you do this with the banks and secured loans. They're gonna leverage. You have to leverage your house. You have to leverage your everything. Right. You have to be willing to lose it all if you want to be an entrepreneur. There has to be, you either got the goal of success at all costs or don't do it. That's the one thing I would say to most people who want to be entrepreneurs is be prepared to risk it all. If you're not, don't do it. Go get a job and be safe. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of great jobs out there.
Right.
But if you do have the mindset that you really want to do it, and I've always wanted to do something in my life significant. I don't want to. Jobs are jobs, right?
Yeah.
Work's work. I've always wanted to do something, that's meaningful. So, yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Did you have a specific moment of enlightenment, or is this slowly just a process? You said you got laid off, and then you kind of started your own business, but was there a moment I could just click? That's what you want to do.
There's been moments, but when you work really, really hard every day, I think the one thing that all the people I know that really put an effort out every day is that you work so hard that it's almost anticlimactic when you hit thresholds and big goals and you finally win.
Mm-hmm.
You're almost like, it's more of a relief than it is like, go celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
But you do need to celebrate when you hit victories and stuff like that. but I think from my business side, when I knew the business was successful, was when I would come in the office in the morning. There were already POs on the old fax machine. If you're, those POs were already there, and some of those POs we didn't work for, they were repetitive POs. When we started seeing that kind of business, that's when I kind of knew we were going to be successful. Up until that point, it was really iffy, So.
All right, what strengths do you, got you to where you are now? What characteristics do you think?
I think one of the things was hard work as a young person, and having a tight family that really cared about me. And then I think athletics, I gotta say, I think sports, for me, being competitive and having competition, failing in competition and then getting back up and going again even when you don't want to.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, I think a lot of people overlook that, but athletics, I don't care what sport it is. I mean, it could be anything competitive. If you're involved in that as a younger person, I think it's beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then, what's your motivation now with your company?
Well, I've already said it. I mean, I have, we're building, the big thing for us this last 5-6 years is building a better culture of people. And so unfortunately, we've had to weed out some people who were not positive thinkers, right? I mean, what you want to do is gather all the positive people in the room with you, and you really can't lose. So we've been really working hard at not only everything from interview processes to hiring practices to training to everything is to, my belief is that there's it's all demographics, right? There's about 10% of people in all demographics that are really, really intelligent and really, really positive. It's about 25% of people that make the world go, honestly. Mm-hmm. And then the other 75% are in the gray zone and blend of that, right? Down to the people who really don't want to work and, so. But that top 10%, if you can gather those people, magic happens for a business. And so, I think the next thing for us is just to keep hiring and finding the great people out there. And I think that one of the benefits I'm seeing right now that our company's doing a really good job with is, when I say demographics, I'm talking about everything from, sex, race, whatever, it doesn't matter. And one of the biggest demographics in my industry especially that's overlooked is women, right? So we've had this demographic in semiconductor in Silicon Valley of white males, basically, has been it, right? And so that's not going to cut it, because that demographics, that 10%'s the 10%'s the 10%.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've opened up to hiring now, and really opened up this last 6-7 years on bringing in, we don't care anymore. We don't, you come in, your qualifications are there, you're on, and your pay is X. It's all, everybody gets paid the same, and we want to pay everybody very well, but open up that demographic, we're getting a lot of great people that we may not have even looked at, 7, 8, 10 years ago, So that's a big deal. I think that's a big deal for your age, especially to think about.
Mm-hmm. So my dad told me kind of what your company does, how it sells welding machines to different areas.
We lease it. We lease,
yeah.
Lease, train, and repair, right?
And then, is there anything else?
Yeah, we do gas delivery systems, chemical delivery systems, abatement, and we're building software and to manage facilities and field services people. So the next 15 years is going to be really dedicated to field services and taking our expertise and our intellectual property with the software developing and develop a service to manage these facilities that are out there. So.
You kind of told us about your life story, but what do you have for us going through and having all that experience? Hopefully we can learn from you.
I think the thing, if I'm going to convey anything to a young person is to be, work hard, right? And stay open-minded, but be inquisitive. When you get out in the working world, you're going to have to be patient, all right? You're going to have to get out there for at least, for me, it was over 10 years to figure out, you've got to have some expertise to be, I think, to be really good, a good entrepreneur. You've got to understand the industry, And so you've got to build that up. That's just like being a coach in sports. You know, most of the good coaches I know, Dave Peck's a close friend of mine who was the Bingham guy that brought Bingham up to where they're at today. You know, we had this conversation, and it was really, you know, you have to coach. John Wooden was 15 years at UCLA before he started winning. You know, so you got to get out there in the world, and you got to get involved. You got to work hard, and you need to learn. Be open-minded and try to. I asked a lot of questions. You know, I still do, but that's how you learn. But you got to really get out there and I think outside the box. How, you know, you see how things are working and how can I make that better. That's what an entrepreneur does, is takes things that he sees out in the world. Elon Musk is a great example. You know, the electric motor and the computer and batteries and all the stuff Elon Musk has done for the Tesla, none of it is a new technology.
Yeah.
It's all old technology. He just put it in a
made it
different
work.
package.
Right.
So,
Do you have any quotes? Do you have like one specific quote that just like sticks with you?
it's a tough one. I wish you'd give me a heads up on that. No, not really.
No?
Not really. I like reading biographies, so I read a lot. I don't read a lot of fiction. I read, you know, some of my favorite books are like Albert Einstein. You know, reading on Einstein and people like that, Churchill and Kennedy, and those people that have been great leaders. I think you can learn how to be a great leader. An entrepreneur is really a leader.
Yeah.
That's what people need. They need somebody. And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice, if you do get to the point where you're dealing with a company, is be a cheerleader. You need to go around. You know, I get probably as much bang for my buck nowadays traveling to my different locations around the world. Now we have a Shanghai location opening up too. So I travel in and I tell everybody how great we are. Because if they can't visualize how great you are, you know, nobody can. And if they believe in it, they're going to work hard and magic happens. When people believe in the goal and they believe in the team, it happens. It moves forward quickly. So be a cheerleader. When you become an entrepreneur, go get out there and travel and go see your people, be eye to eye with them and tell them how great they are and how great you're doing. You know, that's a huge deal. So.
Yeah, anything else?
That's everything I have.
Do you have any questions for us?
No, I think you guys are, I mean, obviously if you're getting involved in this program, you're already thinking the right way. So
Hopefully
Trying.
we can get a head
I
start.
wish I would have had something like that. I you know, being a businessman, I've learned how to be a manager and learn how to be a businessman. And, you know, you got 5 things you really need. You know, you need a good lawyer, you need a good banker, you need a good doctor, you need a good accountant, and my thing is you need a good spouse too.
Yeah.
Having somebody who really gets it and supports you, that's a big deal.
So like the 2 people that you devote like most of your success to would be your dad and your spouse, if you had
Yes.
to choose. Yeah.
Family, yeah, that's always the case. Not always the case. There's other people that can be great mentors outside of your family. Sometimes your family doesn't. But my dad was a great mentor because he taught me to think for myself, which I think has been the most probably important thing for me, because my company has reinvented a lot of what we do. We're the hot rodders of computer control welding now. We take everything and make it better.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Thank you.
thank you guys. Yeah. Good luck.
Awesome.
I think it's going to be.